Hey vinyl community, welcome back to Mike's Vinyl Experience. Thank you all so much for being with me here today. I appreciate each and every one of you. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for your comments that you have left in my past few videos that I have done. The most recent one was Humble Pie Smokin', an Analogue Productions release. And that's really kind of what I've been focusing on the past few days, is these releases that Chad mentioned. Maybe it's been about a month ago in a video from Acoustic Sounds that they were redoing, remastering, actually re-releasing, I should say, some albums that they had done in previous years. Humble Pie Smokin', which we did a video on just a few days ago, and I'll put the description to that, or at least a link to that video in the description below. And then today I want to talk with you about Ray Brown Trio Solar Energy. And then here in just a few days, there's going to be a release of Shelly Manne and Jack Marshall, Sounds Unheard Of. And I don't know if you've heard that album in particular, Shelly Manne and Jack Marshall, Sounds Unheard Of. That's a particular interesting album. I'm super excited to receiving that as soon as it's released and share that with you. But today I want to talk with you about Solar Energy, the Ray Brown Trio. This album really was one of the first albums in the, early to mid 80s that I got introduced to, maybe just a titch, even like 87, when I really first got introduced to this album. It was released in 1980, well, it was recorded in 1984 and released in 1985. But I didn't get to know the Ray Brown Trio Solar Energy album until 1987. Actually, I guess it was 1988 at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. And I tell you, back in those days, the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, and even probably up to 2010, and maybe a year, 2 or 3 beyond that, the high-end audio was such a huge part of the Consumer Electronics Show. And really, you had all the big companies, well, big and small companies, that were in attendance there. And back in these days, in the 80s, later 80s, and in 1988, as I recall, the high-end audio was at the Sahara Hotel in Las Vegas, on the upper floors of the Sahara Hotel, and even some down lower for sure, but because it was so huge. There were so many there showing off their latest achievements, new companies showing their new equipment. Such a wonderful, neat time. But back then I remember going up and down those hallways of the Sahara Hotel on several different floors, listening to all the great manufacturers going in. Most of them had a system set up where you could sit down, and they would have anywhere from 3 to 5 chairs. If it was a bigger room, they'd have up to 15 or 20 chairs set up where you could go in and listen to the system that they were actually showing at that time. Such a neat time. But I remember, and how I discovered this album, it was on one of the floors of the Sahara Hotel, and I believe it was Balanced Audio Technology, the room that they were occupying. Actually, it was 2 rooms that they had. And in one room, they had a system set up, and I wish I could remember the model numbers of their equipment that they were showing. But as I recall, it was a pair of Martin Logan, the CLS speakers that they had. And I remember sitting down and listening for quite some time. And they were listening to both CD and records. And I remember sitting down, when I was sitting there, they put this album on. Now, the album they put on was just a new release, a new remastered release from a company called Super Analog Disc. And I remember listening to that. And Super Analog Discs, what their claim to fame was at that time was they would take the original master tapes and do a half-speed remaster of that. And I remember they put the album on, the Super Analog Disc album on, and it was amazing. Everybody in the room, when they put this album on, was just like glued to their seats and listening intently And it was so awesome. It was just incredible, the sound that we were hearing from this great album. So, as luck would have it, uh, the room that they had next door, they had a static setup of all of their, I don't know if it was all, but a bunch of their balanced audio technology equipment. And of course, in that room as well, they had classic records, was their selling records, and they also had super analog disc. I was absolutely going to be buying this disc, and this one was sold out. That was gone. And I'm sure because they played it and however many they had at the show, I'm sure probably everybody that heard this album when they would do a demo ran over and bought the album for sure. And so they had run out. They didn't have any left. And so I wasn't able to buy it. And I purchased a few super analog discs in the past and probably have maybe 10 of them, 11 of them. I think most all of them are classic, the ones that I have. But I wasn't able to get it on the super analog disc. But a few days after the Consumer Electronics Show, I found it on on CD, a Concorde version. Which, to be honest with you, and keep in mind, back in those days, CD was huge, really huge. Everything was kind of shifting to CD at that time, compact disc. And so when I found that, bought it, I was tickled pink because it did. It sounded fantastic, and it still does today. It's a great sounding CD. But Ray Brown, and I'd heard about Ray Brown before, certainly before this album. And, Ray Brown is just, he's really, of course, he's a legend for sure, but he actually probably did 20 to 30, and that number probably is more, of albums that he either was the front man or part of a trio, that he was, kind of like the front man of, but then he did so many other albums where he was a session player, a player for several others. And I just did, it was crazy. When I was putting this album into my Discogs catalog, I just did a quick search of my collection of vinyl and CDs, SADs, and so forth. And I couldn't believe it. Just in my collection, I had over 50 albums that had Ray Brown on it. I mean, I just picked a couple, three. I mean, this is Ray Brown. Some of my best friends are singers. Great CD, fantastic sound, by the way. And then he plays bass on this album, CD Happy Coat. Excellent sounding CD as well. Of course, he plays on Ella Fitzgerald. This album here, Ellen Lewis. This is the first one that they did, and I believe he's actually on Ellis and Lewis again. And then, of course, on Pablo, he did a ton of Pablo albums with various different people, and we've actually reviewed some of those on my channel. Some of these albums that have been reintroduced by Acoustic Sounds, Analogue Productions, in the Pablo series that they're doing. And he's just on tons of albums. And, it's crazy. When it pulled this up on Discogs, I was like, what the heck? He actually plays bass on Steely Dan's Countdown to Ecstasy on Razor Boy. On that song, I was just like, are you kidding me? He actually played, but Ray Brown played on so many different albums with so many different people. He's an incredible bass player, incredible musician, and I don't have all of Ray Brown's albums, but this is just simply, to me, an audiophile standard. I would like to know what you think. Is this an audiophile standard in your book? Do you believe that it is? To me, it's an audiophile standard, not just because of the incredible sound that is on this album, but the music. The music is fantastic. The musicianship, the playing is really unbelievable. If you're not familiar with the Ray Brown Solar Energy, vet it out, buy it, listen to it on whatever medium that you have. It was originally recorded fantastic. let's go ahead and get started and review and see what Analogue Productions has done. Actually, it's not a new repress and a new mastering job. Analogue Productions actually remastered and redid this album back in 2013. And I think what they've done is just went ahead and repressed it. Let's go ahead and take a look and review Ray Brown Trio Solar Energy. Ray Brown Solar Energy, Analogue Productions, mastered by Kevin Gray at Coherent, remastered I should say, by Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio. It's pressed on two 45 RPM, 180 gram albums, pressed at RTI with the old style printed on type gatefold jacket. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this. I'm assuming, and I don't know the facts of this, I'm assuming that they're probably using all of the stuff that they had back when they did the original remastering job, Analogue Productions, back in 2013, but I'm not really sure. But let's go ahead and take a look at the album. Once again, their covers are just, I think they're just doing an incredible job. And you look at the inside here, you got a great picture of Ray Brown and Gene Harris. Just an absolute fantastic. You've got Garrett King is on drums. Of course, we talked about Gene Harris on the piano, Red Holloway on tenor saxophone. There's only one cut on the album that he is involved with, and that's the same with Emily Ramler on guitar. But boy, I tell you what a fantastic, and I don't think these are limited. I don't think there's any limited number that they're doing. I think it's just something that they've just decided to re-release. And I'm actually really glad that they did. Let's go ahead and just take a quick second and look at the vinyl. The 180 gram vinyl. Of course, the original was pressed on, from Concord Jazz back in 1984. 85 was when it was released. Absolutely fantastic workmanship on the vinyl. And I know you guys all get tired of hearing me talk about this, but I think Analogue Productions vinyl, it's super quiet, coming off a very dark and black background. Just makes all the instruments pop. Not that this album needs any help by any means, but it's just really that dark, quiet background really just adds to the incredible sound of the album. Well, let's go ahead and get into it really quickly, and I'm not going to take a lot of time on this, but the Ray Brown Trio Solar Energy on side one, exactly like Ty. Ray's bass is simply something else. Incredible bottom end weight with gobs of detail. Gene Harris piano is amazing, along with Garrett King's drums. Song is fantastic. Now, when this was originally recorded, this album, I think everything was mic'd. The piano, certainly Ray's bass, and then of course Garrett's drums. I think everything was mic'd well, and even when you get in with the tenor sax and guitar, I think they were closely mic'd as well, because it really there's just so much detail on every instrument, and it's just crazy. Next song in, Crimea River. This is actually just a great song. It's a very smooth, laid-back type of song. The sound quality is simply stunning. And when I say this, it's just not on this cut. It's really and truthfully on every song on this album. The album is recorded so exceptionally well. And that's kind of why I think, and like I say again, I want your feedback. Tell me what you think. Is this an audiophile standard? To me, it is. I think it is. Moving over to side two, since this is a 45 RPM album. First song on side two, Teach Me Tonight. Ray's bass is just incredibly well defined, as are the drums. And I tell you, on Ray's bass, the extension and the weight of the bass is just it's incredible on this album. It's so well recorded. Definition is amazing, but weight and just sheer bottom end is unbelievable. Second song, Take the A Train. What a great rendition of this song. Bass once again is absolutely magnificent. Gene's piano is equally brilliant. and it has amazing details on all instruments. And I want to talk about Gene Harris's piano here in just a second. Moving over to side 3, first song, Mistreated but Undefeated Blues. I think this is probably the best song on the album. And I was trying to remember as I was listening to this album, which song that I heard, or which songs that I heard when I first heard the album back in 1988 at the Consumer Electronics Show. And I couldn't remember, and I think probably the reason why is because they're all very, very good. They're all incredible. But I think this song might be the best one on the album, at least in my perception. It's called Mistreated but Undefeated Blues. This song features Red Holloway's tenor sax and Emily's on guitar, Emily Reimer. And I probably pronounced her name wrong, I'm sorry. And they both actually sound fantastic. I believe they're all mic'd because it sounds like they are. Piano, bass, and drums are just simply beautiful. I think this is probably my favorite song on the album. It's recorded so incredibly well, but the musicianship it's on the entire album, but in particular, this song is fantastic. Second song on side 3, That's All. Slow, very laid-back cut that is just relaxing. Gene hits some keys on the piano, and he hits them really hard. And if you're just kind of relaxing, because it's kind of a relaxing song, and when he hits and strikes these keys on the piano, I tell you what, you will take note. You will wake up if you're slipping away, falling asleep, because it is unbelievable. The impact, the dynamics are just stunning in this cut, especially on Gene Harris's piano. Absolutely unbelievable. Moving over to side 4, Easy Does It. Gene Harris's piano so very well captured on this recording, as is the bass, as is Ray's bass. This is a very dynamic song. Drums are really impeccable on this track. They sound fantastic. They are recorded so very well. Proper weight and definition. It's just incredible. Last song on side 4, Sweet Georgia Brown. This is yet another great, fantastic song on the album. Bass and drums and piano sound as clean and as ever. There's just gobs of details, and I don't know how to explain it any better than that. There's just gobs of detail on every instrument in this recording. The resolution is just uncanny and unbelievable. Really quickly before I get to a conclusion, this is in no way anything scientific by any means at all, okay? I did try to match volume levels, but how does it compare to the compact disc Concrode original version? Because this is this sounds very, very good. Well, there's just so much detail and fine detail on the album. It's really very noticeable. It's quite noticeable immediately. There's just more literally of everything. Bottom end heft and weight is significantly more on the vinyl, but really it's the fine detail that you can really hear, and it's very quite immediate and it's quite noticeable as you hear it. Really and truthfully, and I want to hear from you, to me, this is an audiophile standard album. I would consider this to be in my collection of audiophile records, one of my top audiophile albums, and it's not just because it's recorded and it sounds so well. It's because the music is flat out fantastic. This is some of the best musicianship and some of the best playing and some of the best music that I have. I think it's a jazz standard. I know people will argue with that and disagree, and that's okay. But to me, this is just this is a go-to. I've got a new set of speakers coming in the next few weeks. The Wilson Audio Watt Puppy. This will be one of the first albums that I will put on and listen to once I'm able to get those speakers here and in place and set up. It's that great of an album. I think it's a standard. I'd love to hear what you think. Is this an audiophile standard? I think it's an audiophile standard, and to me it's a jazz standard because it's just fantastic, fantastic music. Love to hear what you think. I think this is a fantastic, fantastic job. I'm so happy that Chad at Acoustic Sounds decided to repress this and re-release it. To me, it's a classic, and I'm glad that I was able to acquire one. It's $60. It's not cheap. I understand that. If it's something that's not certainly a favorite of yours, a CD or even an SACD, if you can find one, I believe they're really expensive, or an original Concrode album would be great. But to me, this is absolutely the standard, really, of what this album can sound like. It's phenomenal. It's a piece of art, in my opinion. Definitely an audiophile standard, an audiophile and jazz classic. Please let me know what you think in the comments section below. If you like what you see, please go ahead and subscribe. I'd appreciate that so very much. But as always, the most important thing to me is please leave comments in the comment section below. I've got some great videos coming up. We'll be taking a look at really the third album that Chad announced about a month ago, Shelly Manne and Jack Marshall, Sounds Unheard Of. That's a fantastic album. I can't wait to share that with you. Also, I will be out sharing with you the setup of my new Wilson Audio Watt Puppy speakers in my room when they get delivered. I should have a little bit better idea when that date is coming here within the next week, week and a half, but it looks like it's going to be somewhere around the end of November, if not sooner, which would be really super great. So I'll keep you abreast of that and keep you informed on what's happening there. Between now and then, we got many videos coming up with tons of great content, tons of music releases that have been coming out. Thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate each and every one of you. Please leave comments in the comments section below. Have a great day.